The string quartet stopped mid-note. Brianna glided toward me, her veil catching the afternoon light, her perfume sharp and expensive. She leaned close, still smiling for the photographer circling us like a vulture. "This is family only," she whispered. "You're not family. You need to leave." The words hit like ice water. Around us, guests turned. Denise, Brianna's mother, watched from her front row seat, a small smile playing at her lips. My son Connor stood frozen at the altar, his face pale, his mouth opening but no words coming out. The wedding coordinator touched my elbow gently, steering me toward the exit like I was a piece of furniture being removed. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I just walked. My heels clicked against the marble floor of the ballroom, each step echoing in the sudden silence. Behind me, I heard whispers rippling through the crowd. Someone gasped. The heavy doors closed behind me with a soft thud that felt final. In the parking lot, I sat in my car and opened my phone. My hands were steady as I logged into the Hale Foundation account and found the wedding funding file. One tap paused all transactions. Another sent automated notices to every vendor. Within seconds, my lawyer's emergency protocol activated, reverting all contracts to payer present authorization. Inside the venue, the music stopped again. This time it didn't restart. "My name is Vanessa Hale, and I just walked out of my son's wedding. Not because I wanted to, because his bride made me." Please subscribe to this YouTube channel for more interesting revenge stories. I'm 52 years old. I built the Hale Event Foundation from nothing, funding life milestones for people who started with less than zero. Weddings, scholarships, first homes. The entire celebration happening inside that venue. Every flower, every candle, every bite of food came from my foundation, from my work, from years of surviving on nothing so I could give others something. Connor grew up beside industrial ovens and folding tables. We built everything together after his father walked out when Connor was 3. I waitressed double shifts, slept 4 hours a night, turned church potlucks into a catering business that eventually made real money. When I sold that company, I started the foundation. My mission was simple: give people the dignity I once fought for. Funding Connor's wedding felt like the final piece of a circle I'd been drawing my whole life. I thought it would be beautiful. I thought it would mean something. I was wrong. What just happened wasn't about class or money. It was about erasing me. And the moment Brianna crossed that line, every clause I'd built into the funding agreement activated. The contracts I'd signed included one non-negotiable requirement: no exclusion or humiliation of named guests. Specifically me. She violated it. So the money stopped. The first time I met Brianna's mother, Denise, I knew there would be trouble. It was at a restaurant downtown, one of those places where the menu doesn't list prices. Connor had been dating Brianna for 8 months. He was nervous, smoothing his shirt, checking his watch. Denise arrived in designer heels and a cream blazer that probably cost more than my first car. She smiled, but her eyes stayed cold. "So you're the caterer," she said, shaking my hand like she was afraid of catching something. "Former caterer," I replied. "Now I run a non-profit." "How lovely," she said in a tone that meant the opposite. "Connor's told us so much about your little foundation." Little. The word stung, but I smiled through it. Brianna sat beside her mother, watching, learning. Connor squeezed my hand under the table. His silent apology. I squeezed back. I could handle this, I thought. For him. Over dinner, Denise dominated every conversation. She talked about their family's event planning business, their connections, their vision for Connor and Brianna's future. "We'll handle all the wedding details," she said. "You just relax, Vanessa. Weddings can be so stressful for people who aren't used to this world. People who aren't used to this world. Like I hadn't organized hundreds of events. Like I hadn't built a business from scratch while she inherited hers. I bit my tongue and smiled. 3 months before the wedding, my cousin called. "Did we do something wrong?" she asked. "We never got an invitation." I checked with the planner, a woman named Catherine who worked for Denise's company. "Oh, those guests were removed," Catherine said lightly. Per the bride's family's request. We're keeping the list intimate. My cousins, my friends, the people who'd helped raise Connor when I was working 3 jobs. All cut from the guest list. I called Connor. Why weren't my people invited? Mom, there's limited space, he said, sounding tired. Brianna's family has a lot of obligations. Business connections. It's complicated. Your family isn't complicated, I said. He sighed. Can we not do this right now? Please. I hung up, my chest tight with anger I couldn't place. Later that week I saw the seating chart. My name wasn't on it. When I asked Catherine, she blinked innocently. Oh, that was an oversight. We'll fix it. But they never did. Every revision came back the same. My name appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again in a corner table near the kitchen. The message was clear. I was an afterthought, a necessary inconvenience. I started documenting everything. The rehearsal dinner was worse. Denise stood at the head of the table, champagne glass raised, smiling at the crowd of 60 guests. Most were hers. We're so proud to welcome Connor into our family, she said, her voice warm and practiced. He's going to do wonderful things with our guidance. Family. Our guidance. Not ours together. Just theirs. I stood to give my toast, the one I'd written and rewritten a dozen times. Before I could speak, Denise cut in. Let's keep speeches brief tonight. We're running behind schedule, and we have so much to cover. Laughter rippled through the room. Not mean laughter. Just the uncomfortable kind that happens when someone's been publicly dismissed. I sat down, heat crawling up my neck. Connor looked at his plate. Brianna whispered something to her mother, and they both smiled. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the moment, the way Denise had silenced me, the way Connor had stayed quiet. At 2 a.m, I emailed my foundation's lawyer, Janice. I need to add a clause to the wedding grant, I wrote. Violation of basic respect voids funding immediately. She called me at 8. Are you sure about this? Yes, I said. I'm sure. The morning of the wedding, I woke up with a knot in my stomach. Something felt wrong, but I couldn't name it. I got dressed in the pale blue dress I'd bought months ago, the one Connor said made me look elegant. I put on my mother's pearl earrings, the only jewelry she'd left me. I looked in the mirror and told myself it would be fine. It wasn't fine. When I arrived at the venue, Denise was already there, directing staff like a general commanding troops. She barely acknowledged me. Vanessa, you'll sit in Section B, she said without looking up from her clipboard. We've reserved Section A for immediate family. I am immediate family, I said quietly. You know what I mean, she replied, walking away. Brianna swept past in her gown, radiant and cold. She didn't speak to me. Connor was somewhere in the back, getting ready, surrounded by groomsmen I'd never met. I stood alone in the hallway, feeling like a stranger at my own son's wedding. That's when the photographer called me over for the family photos. Relief washed through me. Finally, I thought. Finally, I'm included. Then Brianna walked up and spoke those words that changed everything. After I left the venue, I drove home in silence. My phone started ringing within minutes. Connor first. I didn't answer. Then Catherine, the planner. Then a number I didn't recognize, probably a vendor. I let them all go to voicemail. At home, I sat at my kitchen table and opened my laptop. The Hale Foundation's wedding grant system was built with safeguards. Every payment went through verification checkpoints. When I paused the funding, it triggered automatic holds on all scheduled transfers. Vendors wouldn't get paid until I reauthorized. I pulled up the clause Janice had added 3 months ago. It was clear. Any act of exclusion, humiliation, or disrespect toward named grant recipients voids this agreement immediately. Refunds will be processed at the discretion of the foundation. Brianna telling me to leave the wedding was textbook violation. Not just of the clause but of basic human decency. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Connor. Mom, please. What did you do? Everything's stopped. Please call me. Type back slowly. I stopped paying for people who threw me out like trash. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again, then nothing. I poured myself tea and waited. By evening the calls intensified. Catherine left a frantic voicemail. Mrs. Hale, there's been some kind of error with the payments. The florist won't release the arrangements. The caterer is threatening to pack up. Please call me immediately. Denise called next, her voice tight with forced calm. Vanessa, I don't know what kind of tantrum you're throwing, but this is childish. Call me back so we can fix this. Tantrum. Childish. The words of someone who'd never been powerless in her life. I didn't call anyone back. Instead, I opened a bottle of wine and sat on my porch. The sun set behind the trees, painting everything gold and red. My phone kept buzzing, but I ignored it. For the first time in months, I felt something close to peace. Around 9, someone knocked on my door. I looked through the peephole. Connor stood there, still in his tuxedo, his tie loose, his face exhausted. Open the door. Hi, sweetheart. Mom, he said, his voice breaking. What's happening? I stepped aside. Come in. He sat on the couch, head in his hands. The wedding's falling apart. Vendors are leaving. Brianna's hysterical. Her mom is threatening to sue you. I don't understand what's going on. Did they tell you what Brianna said to me? Yes. He looked up. She said there was a misunderstanding. Something about photos. She told me to leave, I said quietly. In front of everyone. She said I wasn't family. Connor stared at me. She wouldn't do that. She did, I said. Ask anyone who was there. Ask the photographer. She looked me in the eye and told me to leave my own son's wedding. He rubbed his face. There has to be an explanation. The explanation is that her mother has been pushing me out from the beginning, I said. And Brianna went along with it. My cousins weren't invited. My friends were cut. My name kept disappearing from seating charts. I've been erased from everything except the part where I pay. Mom, you're overreacting, he said, but his voice was uncertain. I stood and got my phone. Let me show you something. I opened my email and pulled up the message chain with Catherine. Weeks of back and forth about the guest list, the seating, the little cuts and dismissals. I showed him the clause I'd added to the funding agreement. I knew something like this might happen, I said. So I protected myself. He scrolled through the emails, his face growing paler. I didn't know about any of this. I know, I said. That's the problem. He sat in silence for a long time. Finally he looked up at me. What happens now? That depends on you, I said. Connor left around midnight without saying much. I didn't sleep. I kept replaying everything in my mind, wondering if I'd done the right thing. Wondering if I'd just destroyed my relationship with my son over pride. The next morning my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. I answered carefully. Hello, Mrs. Hale. A young man's voice asked. This is Marcus. I was working as a server at the rehearsal dinner last week. Okay, I said slowly. I'm really sorry to bother you, he said. But something happened that night, and I think you should know about it. My pulse quickened. What happened? I was in the hallway outside the private dining room, he said. I heard Mrs. Grant and Brianna talking. They didn't know I was there. They were laughing about you. About how they were going to move Connor's business assets into a family trust after the wedding. Mrs. Grant said something about protecting the money from charity cases. Closed my eyes. Did you record it? I was wearing the venue's standard recording device, he said. For order accuracy. I wasn't trying to spy or anything, but yeah, it's all on there. I felt sick listening to it. My mom raised me alone too. I thought you should know what they're planning. Can you send me that recording? Yes. Already did, he said. Check your email. And Mrs. Hale. I'm sorry about what happened to you. I listened to the recording 3 times. Denise's voice was clear and sharp. The trust needs to be set up before Connor realizes what's happening. Once those startup shares transfer, we'll have real control. Brianna, you need to keep him distracted. Brianna's laugh. Don't worry, Mom. He doesn't ask questions. He's too busy trying to keep everyone happy. The charity woman won't be a problem much longer, Denise continued. After the wedding, we'll phase her out completely. She's not sophisticated enough to navigate our world anyway. The charity woman. Like I wasn't Connor's mother. Like I hadn't built everything that made his life possible. I forwarded the recording to Janice with a simple message. We need to talk. Today. She called within an hour. Vanessa, this is gold. Fraud, financial manipulation, possibly coercion. We can bury them with this. I don't want to bury them, I said. I want Connor to know the truth. Then send it to him, she said. But be prepared. Truth has consequences. I saved the recording to a flash drive. Then I sent Connor a text. Can we meet? Just us. I have something you need to hear. He responded an hour later. Tomorrow. Coffee shop on Main. 10 a.m. The coffee shop was quiet when I arrived. Connor was already there, looking like he hadn't slept. Dark circles under his eyes, hair uncombed. He stood when he saw me, and for a moment we just looked at each other. Hi, Mom, he said. Hi, baby, I replied. We sat. I ordered tea. He ordered black coffee. Neither of us touched our drinks. Brianna's furious, he said finally. Her mom wants to sue you for breach of contract. They're saying you sabotaged the wedding. I stopped paying for people who humiliated me, I said. That's not sabotage. That's self-respect. He looked at his hands. She says she didn't mean it the way it sounded. She was stressed. The photographer was rushing her. Connor, I said gently. I need you to listen to something. I took out my phone and played the recording. I watched his face as he heard Denise and Brianna plotting. Watched the color drain. Watched his jaw tighten. When it ended, he sat perfectly still. When was this? He asked, his voice hollow. The rehearsal dinner, I said. Before the wedding. He stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. I need to go. Connor. I need to think, he said. I need to think. For 2 days, I didn't hear from Connor. Brianna called me once, crying. You're destroying everything, she sobbed. We can fix this. Please just release the funds. Tell me you didn't plan to take Connor's money, I said. She went quiet. Then she hung up. Denise tried next, her voice cold and clipped. You're going to regret this, Vanessa. Have lawyers. Have connections. You think you can ruin my daughter's wedding and walk away. Your daughter ruined it herself, I said. When she told me to leave. You were never meant to be the center of attention, Denise snapped. This day was about them, not you. I never wanted to be the center of attention, I said. I just wanted to be treated like family. She laughed sharp and mean. You were never family. You were funding. Hung up. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. From clarity. Everything I'd suspected was true. They'd never seen me as Connor's mother. Just as a bank account. On the third day, Connor showed up at my house unannounced. He looked terrible. I went to the bank, he said without preamble. To check my accounts. I let him in. He paced my living room like a caged animal. They flagged something, he continued. A request for a joint credit line. Connor and Brianna Grant Hale Family Trust. I never filed that. I never even heard of it. My stomach dropped. When? Last month, he said. Someone used my information. Forged signatures. The bank's fraud department is investigating. They traced it back to an IP address at Denise's office. I sat down heavily. Oh, Connor. She was stealing from me, he said, his voice breaking. Her own future son-in-law. And Brianna knew. She had to know. I wanted to say I told you so. I wanted to say I'd seen this coming. Instead, I just opened my arms. He collapsed into them like he was 10 years old again, and I held him while he cried. Connor arranged a meeting. Him, me, Brianna, and Denise. Neutral territory, a restaurant conference room. Janice came with me, briefcase in hand, ready for war. Denise arrived in armor. Designer suit, perfect makeup, a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Brianna looked small beside her, mascara smudged, fidgeting with her engagement ring. Connor didn't waste time. He slid a folder across the table. "Explain this." Denise opened it. I watched her face change as she saw the bank records, the forged documents, the evidence of fraud. "This is a misunderstanding," she said smoothly. "We were setting up a trust to protect Connor's assets. For tax purposes. With forged signatures." Connor asked. "Without my knowledge or consent." "You were busy with work," Denise said. "We didn't want to bother you." "You didn't want me to know," Connor corrected. "Because you were stealing from me." Brianna burst into tears. "It was her idea," she sobbed, pointing at her mother. "She said it was normal. That families do this to protect each other." Denise's mask cracked. "Don't you dare throw me under the bus. This was for your future. For both of you." "My future." Connor's voice rose. "You humiliated my mother. You cut her out of everything. You tried to steal my money. What part of that was for me?" The room erupted. Denise and Brianna shouting at each other. Connor standing, shaking with rage. Janice calmly taking notes. I sat quietly, watching the family I almost joined tear itself apart. Finally, Connor held up his hand. "Enough." Silence fell. "I'm done," he said. "With the wedding. With this relationship. With all of it." Brianna reached for him. "Connor, please. We can fix this." He pulled away. "You looked my mother in the eye and told her to leave. You plotted with your mom to take my money. You lied to me about everything. There's nothing to fix." "You're making a mistake," Denise said coldly. "You'll regret this." "The only mistake I made was not listening to my mother," Connor replied. "The only thing I regret is not seeing this sooner." He turned to me. "Mom, let's go." We walked out together. Behind us, I heard Brianna sobbing and Denise already on her phone, probably calling her lawyers. I didn't care. Had my son back. Over the next week, chaos unfolded like a storm. Denise tried to leak false stories to local media about me misusing foundation funds. Janice shut it down with evidence and cease and desist letters. The bank's fraud investigation expanded, uncovering 2 other families Denise had targeted through her event planning business. Connor moved his things out of the apartment he'd shared with Brianna. She tried to stop him, crying in the doorway, begging for another chance. He was gentle but firm. "You chose your mother over truth," he said. "I'm choosing mine over lies." The venue refunded most of the deposits to the foundation. I didn't keep the money. Instead, I redirected it to a couple on our waiting list, 2 nurses who'd postponed their wedding after caring for a sick parent. They cried when I told them. Their joy felt like redemption. Denise's event planning business suffered. Former clients came forward with complaints. Whispers turned into investigations. The empire she'd built on connections and manipulation began to crumble. Brianna moved in with an aunt across town, trying to escape the scandal. I felt sorry for her briefly. Then I remembered her laugh on that recording, and the pity faded. A month after the wedding that never happened, Connor came to dinner at my house. He looked better, lighter. The shadows under his eyes had faded. "I've been thinking," he said over pasta, "about the foundation. About what you do." "Oh, yes. I want to help," he said. "Not with money. With work. I want to volunteer. Maybe speak at events. Tell people what happened. Not to shame Brianna, but to help others see the warning signs." I reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "I'd love that." "And Mom," he said. "I'm sorry. For not believing you. For not seeing what was happening. For choosing to keep the peace instead of standing up for you. You were trying to build a life," I said. "That's not wrong. But I almost built it on your back," he said. "That is wrong." We sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then he said, Did you ever think it would end like this? No, I admitted. I hoped it wouldn't. But I prepared for it anyway. Denise sent a formal apology through her lawyer 2 months later. It was hollow and legal, designed to limit liability. I accepted it not because I forgave her, but because holding on to anger was exhausting. Her business never recovered. She sold it for a fraction of its value and moved to another state. Brianna stayed behind, working at a dental office, rebuilding quietly. Sometimes I saw her around town. We never spoke. Connor threw himself into foundation work. He became our keynote speaker, telling our story at events, teaching young couples about boundaries and red flags. Family should never cost you your dignity, he'd say. The rooms always responded with standing ovations. The foundation grew. My Boundaries Before Blessings program went viral online. People shared their own stories of manipulation and escape. The messages poured in. You saved my marriage. You helped me see the truth. Thank you for speaking up. A year after the wedding disaster, I hosted the foundation's annual gala. Connor stood beside me at the entrance, greeting guests, laughing at jokes, looking genuinely happy for the first time in years. The couple I'd redirected the wedding funds to attended. They brought their 6-month-old daughter, named Vanessa in my honor. I held her and cried while her mothers thanked me for believing in love. That night, Connor gave a speech. My mother taught me that love without respect is debt, he said. And debt always comes due. She saved me from a life built on lies. She taught me that walking away from wrong is braver than staying for comfort. The applause was thunderous. I stood in the back, wiping tears, watching my son shine. Afterward he found me. You okay, Mom? Better than okay, I said. I'm proud. Me too, he said. Of you. The nurses whose wedding I funded invited me to their vow renewal ceremony. It was small and perfect, held in a garden with string lights and handwritten vows. They'd spent the year caring for others, saving lives, building a marriage based on truth and effort. I sat in the front row, watching them exchange rings, and felt something click into place. This was why I'd started the foundation. Not for the glamour or recognition, but for moments like this. For people who deserved celebration. Connor sat beside me, holding my hand. This could have been my wedding, he said quietly. No, I replied. Your wedding will be different. Better. When you find the right person. He smiled. If I find someone half as strong as you, I'll be lucky. I leaned my head on his shoulder. You'll find someone who sees you clearly. That's what matters. Months passed. Life settled into a new rhythm. Connor started dating again, carefully this time. He brought his girlfriend by for dinner, a teacher named Simone who laughed easily and asked genuine questions. She treated me like family from day one. Your foundation changed my life, she told me over dessert. My sister used your scholarship program. She graduated last year. Connor looked at me with such pride that I had to look away before I cried. The foundation continued growing. We expanded into new cities, helped more families, trained more volunteers. The Boundaries Before Blessings program became a national workshop. Hired staff, bought a real office, turned my grief into something useful. Denise never contacted me again. Brianna sent one letter years later, apologizing properly this time. I was young and stupid, she wrote. I let my mother control me. I'm sorry for hurting you. I wrote back. Thank you. I hope you find peace. 5 years after that ruined wedding, Connor proposed to Simone. They wanted a small ceremony, just close family and friends. No drama, Connor said firmly. No status games. Just people who love us. They asked me to help plan it but not to fund it. We want to do this ourselves, Simone said. But we'd love your advice. I cried happy tears and helped them choose flowers. The wedding was beautiful, simple, real. Connor cried during his vows. Simone laughed through hers. Their friends danced under string lights while I watched from a table, surrounded by my cousins, my real family. Connor found me during the reception. Thank you, Mom. For what? For teaching me what real love looks like, he said. For showing me that respect matters more than perfection. I hugged him tight. You learned that on your own. No, he said. I learned it from you. The Foundation's 10th anniversary gala was the biggest event we'd ever hosted. 500 guests, including politicians, donors, and families we'd helped over the years. Connor and Simone sat at my table, their 2-year-old daughter asleep in Simone's arms. I gave the closing speech, talking about beginnings and endings, about pain and purpose. 10 years ago, I thought my story ended with humiliation, I said. I thought being rejected by my son's bride meant I'd failed as a mother. Instead, it became the beginning of something bigger. Something that helped thousands of people find dignity in their most vulnerable moments. The room stood and applauded. I looked at Connor, at Simone, at my granddaughter, and felt complete. After the gala, a young woman approached me. Mrs. Hale, she said nervously. I'm getting married next year. My fiancé's mother hates me. She's been cutting me out of planning, making me feel small. I don't know what to do. I smiled and gestured to a quiet corner. Sit with me. Let's talk about boundaries. These days, I spend mornings at the foundation office and afternoons with my granddaughter. Connor runs the day-to-day operations now, letting me ease into semi-retirement. Simone leads the boundaries program, sharing her own story of standing up to toxic family dynamics. Sometimes people ask if I regret how things happened. If I wish I'd handled it differently. The truth is complicated. I wish Connor hadn't been hurt. I wish Brianna had chosen differently. But I don't regret protecting myself. I don't regret demanding respect. Last month, I received a message from Marcus, the server who'd sent me that recording years ago. I just wanted you to know, he wrote, that watching you stand up for yourself inspired me to go back to school. I'm graduating with my business degree next month. Thank you for showing me that dignity matters. I framed that message and hung it in my office, next to the photo of Connor's real wedding, the one built on truth. The foundation continues growing, helping families build celebrations that honor love instead of status. And every time we fund a wedding, I include the same clause. No exclusion, no humiliation, no erasure. Love without dignity is debt. And in this house, we only deal in currency that matters.